Breazeale continues to show how durable he is by stopping Ugonoh. I'm Teekosey and this is with just 15. Teekosey here, and thanks for joining me on With Just 15 Defeats, the boxing show exclusively on YouTube. Today we're going to be reviewing the fight between Izu Ugonoh and Dominic Breazeale, where we saw Dominic Breazeale win by stoppage. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, I just want to say thanks for joining me on this video. If you like the content, remember to give me a big thumbs up. And check out my channel, as I'm going to be also having a review of the Wilder-Washington fight, as well as previews of the big heavyweight fights coming up. We've got Haye, we've got Fury and Parker. We're going to have Klitschko versus Joshua dropping on the channel very, very shortly. And also I'm going to be populating the channel with a number of short bite-sized videos predicting other fights and other things. So get on the channel, hit subscribe, get involved and leave some comments. So this fight, Breazeale-Ugonoh. Now my prediction for this fight that it was that it was going to go into deep water, that it was going to go the full duration, and that Ugonoh was going to win on points. I thought this because Ugonoh's speed, movement, work rate, I thought was just going to be too much for Dominic Breazeale, because we know that Dominic Breazeale is slow, ponderous, limited, one-dimensional. Okay, and I just thought over the course of 12 rounds, he might not be able to stop him, but he will rack up round after round after round. Okay, now what's interesting is that when I put on my preview video, I got quite a lot of comments on this fight, and Ugonoh seems to have quite a good following. I think partly because he's got a lot of Polish fans, but also because he's been fighting on the undercard of Parker fights, and he's gained quite a little fan base. And I think a lot of people were under the assumption that Ugonoh is going to steamroll the division because he's fought a number of all of his opponents to date have been very, very limited, very, very low ranking, and opponents that really he was expected to blow out the water almost instantly. Okay, so just some of the comments that I received on this video, just because I think it's just funny. So just looking at, I got one comment who told me that I should know Izu's name. He's the most naturally gifted heavyweight in the world. I was told that I know little about what I'm talking about. Blah 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 blah. What do we have here? Izu by knockout in the 9th round. If Ugonoh is special, he should win this. What have we got here? I picked Izu stoppage mid-rounds. Izu for the win, knockout mid-rounds. Another devastating right hand takes Breazeale out. Izu is one of the best athletes in the heavyweight division. Izu would beat Wilder easily, in my opinion. So the general consensus was that Izu Ugonoh was going to win this comprehensively and by devastating stoppage. Didn't happen, but this fight was an interesting fight. It was one that I really, really enjoyed, despite the fact that it only went about 15 minutes. It really was a fun fight. We saw a lot of action. We saw a lot of poor boxing, to be honest, but it was a fun fight. Okay. And realistically, I go back to my analysis of Dominic Breazeale, which is summed up in basically two statements. And the first one is that he's rarely in range of his opponent. He's rarely in range of his, despite the fact that he's a massive guy, he's rarely in range of his opponent. Okay, and because of that, he's unable to land shots. But on the flip side, he's always in the range. His opponent is always in range, so his opponent can easily hit him. Right? Now, this is a devastating flaw for any boxer, where you're perpetually getting hit and you're unable to hit your opponent. And this doesn't matter whether you're... He had the same problem when he was fighting very small opponents like Fred Cassidy and so on. Now, this was the case. This was the case in this fight. So for the first 2 rounds, Ugonoh, he won those rounds. He was landing shots. He was chopping him down. He was landing very good body shots, and he won those 2 rounds quite easily. Okay, but then we got the knockdown, bit of a messy knockdown, but it did change the fight. Now, what I will go back to those 2 statements that I just made. Ugonoh he's been dropped. He's injured. Breazeale could not close the show. He was almost leaning on Ugonoh on the ropes, and he was unable to hit him. Check out that footage. It's ridiculous. He missed him. He should have been able to close the show, but he is not dynamic enough to do that. Okay? And before we knew it, there was a comeback. There was a comeback from Ugonoh. And this is where we got a bit of a war. There were punches to and throw. Ugonoh really hurt Breazeale, and Breazeale just basically dragged him to the ground. He dragged him, and we saw a lot of messy action. And anyway, fast forward to the end of the 4th round. Breazeale is completely knackered. In the UK, we've got a phrase that describes the way that Breazeale was, and that phrase is bollocksed. He had nothing. He had 0 energy in the tank, nothing. He was leaning on Ugonoh. There was nothing. If Ugonoh had moved out of the way, it would have been timber. He's landing on the canvas. It's ridiculous. He survived until the end of the round. We get into the next round, and he manages to pull out a stoppage victory. Pretty phenomenal, really, when you think about it. As I say, it could have been stopped at the end of that round. He had nothing. Other cornermen may have thrown in the towel because he could barely stand. And there you go. We've got a stoppage win for Breazeale. Now, what have we learned from this fight? We've learned that Ugonoh has almost no defence. There's a lot of positives there. As I said, one of the comments, who did they kind of compare? Who was he compared to? That I was criticised for not comparing him to Joe Frazier. I was criticised for not comparing Ugonoh to Joe Frazier. Anyway, he's got a lot of skills. He's got a lot of movement, quick. He's dynamic. He can achieve, I think, but defensively, absolutely wide open. I mentioned it in my preview that he's open to the straight right, down the middle. Happened over and over again against opponents who were very, very poor previously against Ugonoh, who had his nose tickled over and over again in fights that he won. But, as I said in that preview, against a better class of opponent, they will find a home and they will find big shots. Now, Breazeale, not the greatest boxer, limited, one-dimensional. He's a big guy, and there obviously is power behind those shots, and he will hurt you if you give the opportunity to him. Okay, so that's something that he needs to do something about. And I can remember at the end of the 4th round, when, just before we saw Breazeale kind of almost collapse, I remember thinking, look, Ugonoh's got this. He'll win this in the next couple of rounds. I remember thinking he's moving forward, but he needs to sort out the defence because, as I say, a better opponent will stop him. We move into the 5th, bang, he's out. Okay. We also found out that Dominic Breazeale is durable. Now, I criticised this comment when it was used in describing him in the Anthony Joshua fight. The reason why I criticised this was because the British commentary team started describing Dominic Breazeale as durable after 40 seconds of the very first round. And I remember thinking, you can't describe someone as being durable for lasting 40 seconds with an opponent. Maybe if they're in the 8th or 9th round and it's been a war, yes, but first round, no. In this fight, as I said, Breazeale could have been stopped. Another cornerman would have thrown in the towel. So he is durable. He's got heart. He has got that desire. He wants to win. And it's what he makes up for a lack of talent. And the problem is that this could get him seriously hurt. He goes in against another big hitter, and it could be bad for him. But anyway, we move forward. Breazeale's won this against all the odds. I don't think anyone picked Breazeale to win. I don't remember reading anything about anyone or watching anything where they said that Breazeale would win this by stoppage. Pretty much everyone was universally in agreement that Ugonoh would win this. Most people said stoppage. I gave Breazeale the benefit of the doubt and said that he would last the fight, but he's won it on stoppage. The problem here is that I think because he is so limited against the better guys, I don't think Breazeale will ever be capable of winning a title, but I think he'll give people a good fight. The problem we've got here is that we've got a number of world champions who are fairly inexperienced. Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, even Deontay Wilder to a certain degree. Their resumes to date have been fairly limited. They haven't fought the top guys yet. So it's difficult when you think that this guy would be a good test for some of those other guys at this point in time, but not for a world title. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I think Breazeale's career continues. I think if he'd lost this fight, it could have been almost over. He would have just gone back to fighting on local shows, etc. Ugonoh here, I think he has the opportunity to come again because to date he hasn't fought anyone of any note. This is the first time he's stepped up. Like, and Breazeale is very, very limited, and Ugonoh was found wanting. Okay. And this was a massive step up for him. That's what I mean. It was a massive step up for him. And Breazeale is very, very limited and basic. So to go up another level, that's a massive leap. I think he really needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs to work on these issues, his defence. The fact that I mentioned in the preview that he's so ripped, he is going to tire. And one of the comments I did have in the preview was that I've seen him, someone said he'd gone like 9 rounds or whatever, and he didn't gas. He was running out of steam in this fight very, very quickly. So it may be a problem, okay? Something for the team to think about. And I think they probably need to put him in the ring with a couple of guys that will give him other tests. As I said, I think he can come again. I think he's a very talented guy. But for now, he's not close to getting ranked under my system as yet. So anyway, that's the fight. Interesting fight, interesting result. Please keep with me. Jump across to my channel and check out my Wilder versus Washington review, and then remember to check out the previews that are coming in the next couple of weeks. I've been Teekosey. This has been With Just 15 Defeats. Have a great day.